What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? John Middlekauff, 3 and Out podcast, presented by my friends at Zone Pouches. Big show coming up. I saw an interesting stat today on Jordan Love that I think is going to put even more pressure on Matt LaFleur and this big picture question, like, is he going to be the long-term coach of the Green Bay Packers? He's essentially in a contract year. Him and Gutekunst did not get their contract extended. After this year, he will only have one left. And most people, unlike Mike McCarthy, do not operate as lame duck guys. Some thoughts on Jerry Jones and the trade deadline. Kirk Cousins, it's official now. He's earned 2 years, $90 million. So we'll dive in. We'll just do some rapid fire stuff. Kyler Murray, Drew Brees is going to TV now, replacing Sanchez. Tom Brady cloned his dog. So we got a lot going on that we will dive into, as well as we'll have a mailbag out today. So at John Middlekauff is the Instagram. Fire in those DMs. Get your questions answered here on this little old podcast. And this podcast exists because of our friends, because of our partners, Zone Pouches. This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. Underage sale prohibited. If you're as competitive as I am, you're always looking for something to help you stay dialed in. That'll be what I will be doing this weekend on the golf course. And my thing is Zone nicotine pouches. You won't catch me without. Typically, I go dragon fruit, but my local Chevron was out of them, so I went with some mints. And not to mention, they have 20 pouches per can versus the other guys that only have 15. So choose Zone and dominate the day. Use the promo code number 3 and out 20 at Nico Kick for 20% off at checkout. I didn't realize there was so much pressure on Matt LaFleur from his fan base. I just would have guessed coming into this year, he was pretty highly respected. I would say universally liked. And then you drop a game as a big favorite to the Browns. You tie the Cowboys, and then you drop that Carolina game at home, and people start asking some serious questions. And most people are not Mike McCarthy. They're not going to coach a lame duck season, even though college and the NFL is a lot different. There's no recruiting. So technically they could run him back next year on a 1-year deal. Typically that does not happen. And I think when you look at the Green Bay Packers, one, if the job became available, it's one of the best jobs in the world when it comes to sports. I'm talking international soccer, obviously baseball, basketball, football, or hockey here. It doesn't get much better than being the head coach of the Green Bay Packers. It's a very stable organization, which is a lot of good players, and clearly a well-run front office that has lasted the test of time from the 90s since Ron Wolf got there. It has basically streamlined through Ted Thompson, now to Gutekunst. They all are interconnected because they've all worked for each other. And I saw a stat today that made me go, God, I kind of understand what they're saying. And he gets credit for this, but this also puts you in a position where the heat is on. And I didn't do a very good job of singing that song. But the stat was, this is the list of quarterbacks that have 10,000 yards, 70 touchdowns, and less than 30 interceptions in their first 50 games. So through about 2.5 years of their early career, this is the list of guys who have played pretty well. Patrick Mahomes, obviously one of the greatest players of all time. Russell Wilson, Hall of Fame start to his career in Seattle. Dak Prescott, who drives a lot of us nuts, but obviously he's had some really, really good years and really started fast. And Jordan Love. And I started thinking, I'd remove Mahomes from that list. He's clearly an outlier. But when you look at the other two guys, like Russell Wilson in the peak of his powers was getting Pete Carroll contract extensions, and they were competing for Super Bowls. Dak Prescott, on the flip side, kind of underwhelmed in some big games. And essentially, he was an older version, but let's face it, Mike McCarthy got fired because Dak Prescott did not play well in the playoffs at all. Played bad against the 49ers 4 years ago, played bad again against the 49ers the following year, and obviously was horrendous with the rest of the team against the Green Bay Packers 2 years ago. But when you are in a situation with a quarterback who is producing and your team is going to go to the playoffs, you're held to a pretty high standard. And that quarterback actually makes it more like people questioning your ability because you go, oh, this guy's pretty solid. And clearly the talent around him is good and their defense is good, which has kind of always been a downfall of the Green Bay Packers. So when I go, well, is Matt LaFleur going to get extended? I'd say he better win some playoff games, because I do think there's a chance that you could question. It's kind of like the James Franklin thing. James Franklin did not get fired because he lost to Oregon. He did not get fired because he lost to Ohio State. He got fired the moment he started losing to UCLA and Northwestern. It's like, listen, if you lose in the second round, like last year, Sean McVay going toe-to-toe with the Philadelphia Eagles, he lost. That actually was like a notch on his belt. It was really impressive. It'll be something these last couple years. Sean McVay may never win the Super Bowl again. I don't know. Maybe he'll win 2 more. But those 2 years where he's rattled off back-to-back 10-win seasons and had playoff teams has been pretty impressive. Kyle Shanahan is not going to make the Super Bowl this year. And if he does make the playoffs, he'll probably get curb stomped in the first round. But just making the playoffs with a bunch of randos is a big deal. Now, part of it for Matt LaFleur, it goes, what is your ceiling? And your ceiling, because, and it could be the quarterback. Where is Jordan Love going to fall? Is he Dak Prescott? Like, how's he going to play in the playoffs? But ultimately, he's going to determine Matt LaFleur's fate. Obviously, Matt LaFleur has some control over that because he's calling the plays. But, like, he's not telling Jordan Love to throw across his body in the red zone right to a Carolina defender. Like that, I'm sure he's not giving him the thumbs up on that. And I think it's going to come down to, is this young guy the version of Russell Wilson, who is making all these crazy plays and obviously doing well in the playoffs? Or is it going to be a Dak Prescott situation where it just underwhelms? Now, if I remember correctly, Dak Prescott, his rookie season when he played the Green Bay Packers in the second round, when I think they were the 1 seed, actually played pretty well. They lost the game, but it was because their defense got shredded. But ultimately, Jason Garrett got fired. And I just think that when it comes to this Packers situation, I think in a perfect world, they would love to just, even if they don't make the Super Bowl, be the NFC Championship game, extend everybody, and just keep this thing rolling. Sometimes that doesn't happen. And when you lose games like you do against Carolina and Cleveland, it's hard to trust you as a team. And they're playing the Philadelphia Eagles this week on Monday Night Football. There are going to be a lot of eyeballs on that game. And here's the thing about the Green Bay Packers. They get up for the big games, right? At least they have this season. It's going to be like, well, what happens when they play the Bears? What happens when they play J.J. McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings, who might be out of it by then, right? Because they have some tough games on their schedule. They still got to go to Detroit, to Denver. What does Baltimore look like when they play them later? So I just think that this situation for Matt LaFleur is something that I would have told you were crazy, 6 months ago, that his job was in jeopardy. Better win. You don't have to win the Super Bowl. You don't have to win the NFC. But I do think you got to show out in the playoffs. You can't have a situation like last year where it was just that first round game was an embarrassment. If it wasn't for Josh Jacobs, who played his ass off, there would have been a bigger negative stink coming into the season. And if he has another one of those, I think his job would be in major jeopardy. Today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. We talk a lot of football and 3 and out, but there's always something to bet on. The NBA's in full swing, college hoops literally started Monday, and even the NHL is heating up. So if you haven't tried your first bet yet, just download the Hard Rock Bet app, and there's still time for you to get $150 in bonus bets. Just place a $5 bet, and if it hits, you not only get your winnings, but $150 in extra bonus bets. The Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook app is the only legal sportsbook whenever you're in Florida. And it also is live in Arizona, Ohio, Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, Colorado, coming soon in more states near you. So whenever you're listening, just open the app and check out what you've got on any given day of the week. Download the Hard Rock Bet app today and make your first deposit. Okay, Jerry Jones. I was thinking about this because I didn't mind the trade. I do understand the argument of, like, teams going nowhere, like acquiring Quinnen Williams, who is a good player and immediately their best player on defense. Like, it's not bad business. And over the course of this season and then next year, all you're giving up during that period of time is your second rounder. Now, in 2027, you are giving up a first rounder, which is the best version of yours or Green Bay. So even if you're decent, what if Green Bay, what if Jordan Love breaks his ankle and their backup quarterback's in shambles? Maybe they have a new coach. and they won 6 games, and that's pick 7. So you just never know. But I was thinking about Jerry Jones, who is 83, who just turned 83. When that 2027 first rounder has played a month, Jerry's birthday's in October, a month in the NFL, Jerry will be 85 years old. And if you think about it like this, if I gave you $10 million, if you just handed me $10 million right now at 40 years old, I'd have a lot of options, right? I probably would try to make some long-term plays, right? Invest in the stock market, invest in property, maybe buy a second home for my family. I don't know, but I would think big picture, right? If you just handed me $10 million and I was 80 years old, I probably would operate a little bit differently, right? I'd be like, well, who knows how much longer I have? Whoever is still alive, hey, I'm going to charter a plane and let's go to Hawaii. Let's go do something fun, right? Who knows how much longer? This $10 million doesn't come with me to the grave. It's not really how it works. You've never seen Wells Fargo or Bank of America fall in a hearse. Not the way it works. So I do think when you're Jerry, and this is because most GMs and most younger owners, I think, in that situation, just would not, because you could argue this Quinnen Williams trade would have still been there in 6 months, right? In February at the combine, leading up to free agency. But here's the problem. Jerry's not thinking about 5 years from now. He's 83 years old. And while I do think if they hit on some picks next year, they still have 2 first rounders. And free agency, if they sign a couple good players, their team could be better, right, on defense. Because we know offensively they're going to have pieces and they're going to be fine. But I think a lot of people questioning is like, why would the Cowboys do that? Because Jerry looks at that 2027 first rounder like, there might be a 50-50 chance I'm 6 feet under. I'm not even around. Now, that's not the healthiest way to run a franchise, but like, I do kind of get it. And I do think their logic and mindset on it changed when their GM is 83 years old. No other team would employ a GM probably even close to 70, let alone in his 80s. So the Cowboys are just a different operation. And, Quinnen Williams, I saw some quotes today saying, listen, the Jets knew I was frustrated with losing. It's like, well, I don't know how many games you're going to win this year with Dallas, but probably won't be that many more than the Jets. But, hey, based on New York State income taxes and Jersey and Mondami raising that shit, you're going to save some cash. But I will say this. Jerry's living in the moment. Jerry's living in the moment. And that's why we talked about this yesterday with Aaron Glenn. They are probably in no rush. Like, they're going to want to use all those picks, right? And rebuild this thing. And they'll say this over and over. We want to rebuild this thing the right way, right? And totally agree with them. I'd want to rebuild the thing the right way. And the GM is going to sell this to Woody. I'm going to take these picks and I'm going to build a team full of guys like Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams, guys like that, right? I'm going to nail picks with a bunch of sweet players. But he gets to take a more macro look at everything. That's how GMs talk. They think big picture. They don't live day-to-day, practice to practice, week to week. They're part of that operation. But they're, during the week, especially, in November and December, GMs are watching a lot of college film. They're watching guys that are going to be free agents in 2026. They're not focused on the upcoming opponent. It's not the way it works. I do think that Aaron Glenn and any coach in his situation, because it's easy for him. I saw he had some quotes today of saying, like, we're going to try to build a team and coach a team that makes the fans proud. It's hard to do that when you suck. And as a CEO head coach, when you suck, it can look really bad really fast because people start asking, what are you doing? And I mentioned this early in the week. The thing with Aaron Glenn is you're going to have to prove to everybody, including your owner, and he can say all the nice things right now, and he likes you, and he give you a contract. He's proven he will fire people. He will not hesitate. He's proven he's a little crazy. So the only way you can prove that is, like, show some tangible impact. And I said this yesterday, and I will keep repeating this. I do think he needs to take the reins back to be the defensive coach. Show, like, oh, he's look at him scheming on a weekly basis. Look what he brings to the table. So even while we suck, we got something in this guy. But in 3 years, when you've averaged 4 wins a season, it's like, well, we got all these picks. All people will say, was our coach any good? Do I want Aaron Glenn coaching those guys? Because people will forget what Aaron Glenn did with the Lions. Because in 2028, that'll be 5 years ago. we have memories like goldfish now. We do not like, oh, remember back in 2004? People do not think like that. That's not, our society's too fast paced. We're losing too many brain cells with the cell phone, social media, and just everything coming into our brains. So in 3 years, if it continues to look ugly and I'm just like, I'm the CEO, I'm the head coach, it is not going to go well. I do think he's going to have to do something dramatic. They can tell him whatever he wants to hear right now. We're in it for the long haul with this guy. We really like this guy. Easy to say. Tell me that after another season of 4 wins. So back-to-back years of sucking. That's a long football season of just losing on a weekly basis, which, let's face it, that's probably going to continue. Let's hit on some other things. Kyler Murray was officially put on IR today. And Jonathan, they've really tiptoed around this situation, which I understand, right? If you're trying to sell a car, you're not going to tell the guy, like, yeah, this thing kind of sucks. Breaks down all the time. It's not very reliable, right? You try to uplift, like, my car's great. I've had it for 3 years. Never had an issue. Air conditioning's freezing cold. Speakers are great. Brand new tires. I mean, this thing's ready to roll, right? So you want to promote this guy. You never want it to come out, even if everyone knows that we bench Kyler Murray. Again, even if literally everyone understands that, that's never coming out of your mouth. And I don't ever expect for them to say, we've benched Kyler Murray. They benched Kyler Murray. And there's nothing wrong with that. I got no problem with that. They didn't draft him in the first place. He hasn't played that well. He's been banged up. But Jacoby Brissett in the offense is just better with him. And most importantly, their guy, the guy they drafted number 4 overall, Marvin Harrison, looks good with Jacoby Brissett. So now the question is, like, what happens now? And there's no disputing, like, Kyler Murray's better than a lot of guys in the league. At least can be on an individual game basis. Over the course of games, I'm not quite sure he's a winning quarterback. But I don't think he has much trade value. So if I had to guess right now, I would expect Kyler Murray to be released in February. That would be my guess. That Kyler Murray will be a free agent going into the free agent market in middle of March. But I do not think he will have a trade market, even if it's for nothing, based on how much money he was making. Right? If you told me his contract was $20 million a year, I'd be like, yeah, some team for sure could bring him in as a bridge quarterback, trade like a 5th-round pick. No one is taken at a salary of $45-50 million. That is just not taking place with a massive cap hit. That's not the way it works. Because I believe if he was on the open market, in February, to me, his market would be like, I think someone give him 1 year, $15 million. I think the Jets proved that, like, they gave a guy 2 years, $40 million and immediately regretted it. Now, could you give Kyler that contract? You surely could, but why would you? And that's the thing with the Jets. It's like, you trust these guys making all these moves? Because I don't know if I do. But, and that's, listen, all these guys are competing for their job, right? And that's ultimately what these guys are doing in Arizona. Sure, they want contract extensions, but it's hard to give someone a contract extension at 7 and 10. It's a little bit easier if you go, look, when we didn't have to play with Kyler Murray and we got a capable backup, our team wasn't that bad. So, hey, this offseason, if we can just get a solid starter, our team should be pretty solid. And that is probably going to be their pitch. Speaking of bad quarterbacks, Kirk Cousins, him and his agent, who I know a little bit, Mike, has done an incredible job. They fleeced the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, fleeced Atlanta. Kirk Cousins will officially have made, for 2 years of work, started 15 games. He made $90 million. He threw 18 touchdown passes. He threw 16 interceptions and was objectively a below average player. And listen, he was good before he hurt his Achilles, but when you're in your late 30s and you hurt your Achilles and you're able to get a 4-year, $180 million contract with almost $100 million guarantee, you deserve a round of applause. That is great business, because the Atlanta Falcons a month later drafted a guy number 8th overall, which we're not sure can play either. And this speaks to the downfall of this franchise right now. They not only can't figure out the quarterback position, they keep making the wrong moves, right? A couple years ago, they started Desmond Ridder to come into a season. What did you guys think was going to happen? Then they overcorrect in the offseason and they give a guy who can't play anymore because, like everyone in the history of football or pro sports, once you get older, you fall off a cliff. That could be 32, it could be 35, it could be Tom Brady and be 44. You never know. But it happens to quarterbacks. It happened to Brees. It happened to Roethlisberger. It happened to Peyton Manning. It happened to Rivers. It happened to Matt Ryan. Happens to every guy. And that was Kirk Cousins. Achilles, career over. But before his career was over, I'm getting $90 million from Home Depot. And that's what he did. So congrats to Kirk Cousins, which I do think if the Atlanta Falcons continue to underachieve and obviously don't make the playoffs, I think this will be one of the pivotal moments that will lead to everyone in that building getting fired. Because the football operation, it's one thing when you're losing games. It's another thing when you start allocating funds to people that can. I mean, they paid $27.5 million for Cousins to be their backup this year. I think we're probably 5+ years away before backup money even sniffs $20 million, right? It's pretty rare when you see that, one, like Sam Darnold last year, 1 year, $10 million. Daniel Jones, 1 year, $14 million. But I think in both cases, they kind of knew the guy was going to be the starter. I just, how many guy, I'm going to be a backup. It's usually the going, Mac Jones got 2 years, $7 million. What Gardner Minshew get? 1 year, $4 million. I mean, usually the going rate is $3 to $5 million. And you had Kirk Cousins getting 27.5. And then he was forced to play and obviously did not do well. And they got boat raced by the Miami Dolphins. Okay, really quick, before we dive into a couple more things. I got to tell you about my friends. GameTime. Best ticketing app in America. Do you guys want to go to a professional football game this year? Do you want to go to a game? You want to go to Vegas? You want to go to Denver? You want to go to LA? You can go anywhere you want. You type in the team, you type in the ticket, and here's the great part about GameTime. They do not add fees when you're trying to check out. Sometimes you check out and it's like $100, and then all of a sudden it's like $175. It's like, well, that's not $100. That's not the case with GameTime. Any of the numbers you see, the fees are already baked in there. That is the number you pay at checkout, and you can find professional football tickets for as cheap as $100. So take the guesswork out of buying professional football tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code JOHN, JOHN, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go download the GameTime app today. Okay, a couple more things. Drew Brees has been pretty adamant that he would be one of the best broadcasters in America if he was given the chance. Now, granted, we saw him a couple years ago on NBC. Did not go well. Some of that, if I remember correctly, was in studio. So sometimes being in studio and doing a game can be a little different. Like the studio situation, especially when there's 7 guys on the desk, can be difficult to get your opinions and your thoughts out. JJ Watt's a good example. Like you put him on the desk with 5 other guys. Like I'm not really much to take away. I watch him doing the broadcast. I'm like, hey, he's pretty solid. He's not bad. It's kind of fun. He can make some jokes. He's pretty comfortable in that seat. So I think the problem is there's an arrogance with Drew Brees because he was such a great player, and his belief in himself, it should be really high. He just thinks I'm going to dominate this. And part of being great as a broadcaster is like, this is entertainment, man. Like your job as a football player was very production based, about learning, understanding the defense, then executing it. Your personality, obviously you had to be a leader as a quarterback, but it's a completely different profession. Like, can you make me smile? Can you crack a joke? Can you be serious? Will you be critical of a guy? Like, it's really, really, are you comfortable in your own skin? Can you be self-deprecating? Can you make fun of yourself? Because you just being a famous former, future Hall of Famer doesn't just make you a good broadcaster. Honestly, it's kind of irrelevant. How often, if you just go around baseball or basketball for the local broadcast, can you find guys calling games that were by no means the team's biggest stars that are really good because they're really, really entertaining? I grew up on Dwayne Kuiper and Mike Krukow. Dwayne Kuiper is an outlier. He is a former professional baseball player who is the play-by-play guy for the Giants and has been for decades. Again, he's not a broadcaster, went to Syracuse or Northwestern and learned and then worked his way around. He literally was a Major League Baseball player, 1 career home run, and calls the games. And his partner also, They're not Barry Bonds or, Willie Mays, but they're elite at their job. They're older now, but in their prime, it did not get any better than those two. Why? Because they were really, really entertaining. And I just think part of football, you got to find a lane, and Troy Aikman, he's kind of a hard ass. He will let it rip. Collinsworth, he's fun. Romo is kind of all over the place. I just wonder what Brees, because everyone loved him as a teammate. He was universally respected and liked in that locker room. But that was because he was a great player and a great worker. And everything he did for that franchise was about winning. As a broadcaster, none of that really matters. I mean, it obviously matters that you have the credentials as a player, that if you say something, we think you know what you're talking about. But it's going to be very interesting to just next time he calls a game, I'm going to put it on because he stalked a big game. And last time he got a shot, it did not go well at NBC because I think a lot of these guys kind of get in that mold of, as a player, when the camera was on, I kind of had to turn on my politician hat. I couldn't maybe be as personable, right? It's why the guys that can be personable with a TV camera on them are some of our biggest personalities. Why do you think Kelsey has flown up the ranks, both of them? Because they can be loose in front of a camera. George Kittle's the same thing. You watch some of these guys, like, God, he won't say anything. So Drew Brees, one of those guys, didn't say that much. So now he's just going to go television and just dominate. We'll see. I hope he does. The more good broadcasters, the better. Tom Brady cloned his dog. I guess he's part of this company, this bioscience company that's investing in the cloning world. I don't know if it's just animals. I would imagine humans as well. My first reaction, as someone that has a little dog that's a little older, that obviously the dog's not going to live forever, I don't think I would do that. Because I think what would be really weird is that if you cloned the dog, and so you gave me the same looking type dog of my Pug Zoo, 32 pounds, kind of fat, underbite, likes to eat, but there's no way the personality would be the same. So I would have Lolly 2.0, but I'm sure she would probably act a little bit differently. That would throw me off. And that feels a little too like dystopian zombie land for me. It's not something that at first blush, when I read the headline, I'd be that interested in. But the least shocking thing I've ever seen is that Tom Brady is in the cloning business. Because in what world could you find a guy in his, what's Tom, 46, 47 years old, who has his money just grows and grows. He's in great shape. He's single. Guess what I would never want to do if I was him? Die. I'd want to live forever. I would never want this world to stop. Yeah, I got a house in Miami, got a house in some Italian villa. I've got a house in Vegas. I got a house in Newport Beach. I got 7 girlfriends all around. Everywhere I go, I fly private. I don't have to deal with any human beings. My life doesn't get much better. So, hey, we got this business that's cloning in. Like dogs, well, could it be humans one day? I'm in. I want to clone myself and I want to keep going. So the least shocking thing I've ever seen is that Tom Brady does not want this thing to stop. If I was him, I wouldn't either. I'd want to keep this train rolling down the tracks. So, listen, I would not be into cloning a dog. I just think that would be a little too weird. I think there's part of it, like just let the dog be and hold on to those memories. But I do understand why Tom would one day not want his life to end. It's too good. I didn't work 20 years to build this decade to then become worth hundreds of millions of dollars and one day probably going to own the Raiders for this not to last as long as I can. What's the point of having all this money if I can't one day maybe just keep living a little bit longer? Totally understand where he's coming from there. And last but not least, one story I saw on the interweb that kind of made me laugh is people are always arguing, like, we all acknowledge football is the most popular sport, no second place. Like, the gap between the sport of football, and that includes college football, and the other sports is gigantic, right? The World Series just did huge numbers. 25 million people watch Game 7. For example, the Chiefs and the Bills on Sunday afternoon, a regular season game, did over 30 million people. But I saw a lot of people arguing about what's more popular, basketball versus baseball. And obviously, depending on the market, some places the NBA team does really well. Obviously, in some markets like the Cubs, the Dodgers, the Yankees, baseball teams do really well. But here's what I know, because people made a really big deal over the World Series getting 10 million more viewers in Game 7 versus the NBA. Guys, the Los Angeles Dodgers are infinitely bigger than the Oklahoma City Thunder, are infinitely bigger than the Indiana Pacers. It is not a fair fight. So we can argue baseball's relevance, how culturally impactful it all is. Here's what I know. The Los Angeles Dodgers by themselves, just like the New York Yankees, they did huge ratings last year when they played each other in the World Series, are two of the rare teams in baseball or basketball that would be the equivalent of NFL teams. The NFL is the only sport that can take small markets, Kansas City, Buffalo, and do enormous numbers. The other two sports cannot. If the Twins had played the Diamondbacks in the World Series, guess what? No one would have watched. If the Oklahoma City Thunder played the Indiana Pacers in the NBA Finals, guess what? Not as many people are going to watch as if the Lakers played the Knicks. This is a pretty easy math equation. But one constant these last couple years with big ratings in baseball have to do with one team and one team only, and that's the Los Angeles Dodgers. They are a fucking cash cow. They have an enormous, a long list of generations of fans. They have they're in one of the biggest cities in the world, and they have been relevant as a franchise for several generations because they've won in multiple different decades. But the way they're doing it too, with this international superstar and basically buying all the best Japanese players, has even added a wrinkle of like, oh, they have the Japanese Babe Ruth, but not like the fat Babe Ruth that couldn't really run and probably threw 88 miles an hour. Yeah, he throws 100 and he's 6'5", and he runs like he's Derek Stingley Jr. Yeah, and he pitches like he's Roger Clemens. It's like, what? Like, people are going, even if you're not that into baseball, you're going to pay attention. I'm a good example. I didn't watch I didn't watch a total of 9 innings the entire baseball season. I probably watched 80% of the Dodger games. I just found them must watch. They're pretty interesting. No different than like, I didn't watch the Blue Jays Seattle. You know why? Didn't do anything for me. I didn't care. Guess what I did watch? Blue Jays versus the Yankees. The big brands in baseball matter. And as long as the Dodgers are winning every year, guess what? A lot of people are going to watch. People like dynasties. They just do. They interest people. The Bulls, the Patriots, now the Chiefs, the Warriors, like they move the needle. Like the random one-hit wonder like the Indiana Pacers do not. And I'm not trying to take shots at the Indiana Pacers. I grew up, have a lot of respect for that franchise. Reggie Miller, the Davis brothers, Mark Jackson, Larry Bird. Like, I got no issue with them. But this isn't that complicated. If the Lakers were in the NBA Finals against the Boston Celtics, those numbers would have been up as well. But if the Oklahoma City Thunder keep making the NBA Finals, even if they do become a dynasty, I just don't think people are going to get behind it. It's not going to work. That's why I think the NBA wanted Luka with the Lakers. Why the Major League Baseball has no issues with Shohei Ohtani going to the Dodgers. They wouldn't mind some better players going to the Yankees. Like this, the basic math equation. And they got more eyeballs when they're on television than all these other franchises.